What's going on, Warrior Clan? It is your big warrior and leader himself, Maddie. We are coming at you live right now, and we're going to be discussing this week's Marvel's newest adventure, you could say, WandaVision. I'm not alone. I brought a spaceman with me, Mr. Alan Shep. Hello, brother. How goes it?
I'm doing good. We're doing good here on a Sunday. Feeling good. Excited to be here with you to talk about this show because I'm all kinds of mixed on this thing. And so I'm very, very interested to hear your details, my details, and then we'll spit it out there to the world and, see what happens.
Radio, that's the way it goes. So a little backstory on this show. Basically, you have no fucking clue what's going on. Apparently it starts out in the early 50s, 60s era sitcom, black and white, kind of like it had an I Dream of Jeannie sort of feel to it, where she's kind of out of her element. Her and Vision are almost, it seems like, not sure what the hell is going on. And the world just kind of elopes around him. Basically, it starts in there pulling into town, and she goes, I like that house. We're going to take that house. Boom, there's a for sale sign. Oh, the neighbors are here. Hey, how's it going? And the show starts. I thought it was a great way to start the show. What did you think of just that opening sequence where they're pulling into town? They go, I like this place. She's like, well, we're going to take that house and we're going to move in. And then he drops her. And then he drops her.
Yeah, that was nice. I dug it. I like the intro. It kind of sets up exactly what we're getting. I think. Well, we'll talk about other stuff later, but just for that intro, it's a great intro, intriguing. To take characters that we know from very modern times and put them in this new element, this past element was cool because as soon as it sets up a definite feeling and it sets up that sitcom two camera angle thing going on, and even has the laugh track and all that stuff, to take these two characters that we know and love from other time frames and putting them in there. Yeah, it was interesting. It caught my attention. Went, okay, I definitely want to see what happens next.
Yeah, like I grew up watching, these 70s sitcoms with my mom and grandma growing up, and then I just out of curiosity showed I Dream of Jeannie to Caleb when it was in color. I started in with the color episode because black and white's a little hard, especially with kids nowadays to take.
Yeah.
But then he got into the show and we went back into the black and white. He thought it was hysterical. He was supposed to give his 2 cents, but going out and playing Fortnite with his friends is apparently a little bit better now that he can pick up his Switch, the Switch, and run out the house with it and still play. He really dug it. And it's funny, like the way they presented it, even with the trailers, you really don't know what's going on, and that's kind of the way it felt. Like the opening scene when you meet, oh Jesus, what is her name?
Agnes.
Agnes.
Yeah.
She kind of throws the door open, and at first she's like, "Oh, I brought you this," and she kind of looked a little confused for a minute, and then it's a houseplant, and it felt like the kooky neighbor you would have met, in a sitcom, and it's just. But things started to get a little even twisted in the first episode, but they brought the comedy aspect to it, like the fact that just the opening scene, she's putting dishes away and she hits it, and they just kind of do that whole 70s ha 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 kind of laugh track, and then the laugh track came in just like you said, which I thought was perfect. It felt like they could have gone filmed in front of a live studio audience, and I'd have believed it. Granted, nobody's around,
nobody's there. Yeah, the that particular moment, I actually laughed along with the laugh track because of just the kookiness of it, and the lines that they said, and thinking back on it, it was a very silly, weird kind of moment. But what they said, the lines themselves is, "Hey, oh, haha, my wife with her flying saucers," referencing aliens. And then she said, "My husband with the indestructible head," when an alien crushed his head and actually destroyed his head. So it was pretty interesting. I like that dynamic and that weird, Huh. Okay. Interesting how they played that into that.
That's funny you said that because I didn't catch that, but now that you say it, it's like, well, that's interesting. Or the fact that
Yeah.
like they were trying to pull the gem out of his head, and Shuri was having so much trouble getting around the code, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden she just tried to pull it out herself, and just at that moment, Thanos showed up and took time back and pulled it out himself. That's
Yeah, and he ripped
interesting.
it out, and then his head was not indestructible then because he
And
put a
I
hole
love
in
the
it.
and I love the callback to Infinity War where he's getting ready to walk out the door, and she's like, "Honey," and she looks at him and just does this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can't look like the Vision going into the real world," and
Yeah,
that's a callback to when they were in whatever little village or whatever when we
town they
first
were in.
meet
Yeah,
Remy Ma. Yeah, and I just like the fact that they kept calling back to the original episodes, and it's kind of like, well, that was
yeah. It
a
was
way
it
to
was
go.
interesting.
And then watching
Yeah,
Vision's reactions to people in the workplace, like, and they're like all confused over the calendar, like, who put this here? I wonder where this is coming from. Because they hadn't been there. They couldn't have been there that long.
oh no, yeah, they're absolutely right. Because if there's any time, passage, we're kind of with them the whole time. And there's a limited time passage between scenes, quote unquote. So yeah, there that calendar popping up there, and then not knowing what the heart meant, and it was very, very typical sitcom of that era. Fish out of water. Very, very rote. But again, because it's these characters we know so well, it kept me intrigued in that way. I don't know that I want to see two more episodes of this 50s sitcom thing, and because everything turned to color at the end of the second episode, I think we're going to get to another era. I think we're going to go to maybe the 60s or 70s or maybe
That's
80s.
kind of what I was thinking, and I like the
Yeah,
way that it progresses. You get that kind of slapstick, you know, uh, sitcom. I keep going back to that word because it's the best way to
that's what
describe
it
it.
was. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and how it continued to develop everything.
Hey, little warrior.
All right, hold on. We'll take a real quick break. What did you think of WandaVision?
Good.
What else
Good.
did
You
you
liked it. What'd you like best about it?
What? Wanda using her magic.
Yes, that was a really, really good point because she used actual magic, which we never really seen her do before, right?
Right, she moved
I mean,
things
she
and kind
moved
of
things,
created things in
yeah,
people's heads, but not
but
really to
this,
the extent she did.
yeah, this, she actually made stuff appear and disappear, and real magic kind of usage, so which was really cool, and reverse time as well, because
Yeah.
well, at least in that second episode. So yeah, I like the fact that she used kind of magic too.
All right, Bubba. Switch.
Good job, buddy.
Go sit down. Go sit down for a minute.
Glad you're feeling better, Flash.
Go tell Grandma. She'll make it.
I like that. I like that Flash shirt.
Yeah. He's like, I'm hungry. I said, so go tell Grandma you're hungry. She can make your plate real quick.
Exactly.
Well, I made steak and crab legs for dinner, and his ass wanted to go play instead of eat hot food. But
What? All right.
But anyways, he brought up a good point. Like you actually, like we see Wanda doing in the first episode too. You see her moving things like she normally has, but
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, like even with the candle, we never actually see her do her magic like we know she has. I mean, if you're a fan of the comics, she can, perform magic,
Yeah.
which I really
Well,
like.
yeah, I like that too. And I like the fact that we're seeing a progression of her powers, but are we? Because obviously, given the name of the thing, this is all in her mind. This whole entire thing is right in her mind, which is pretty interesting because we're seeing her point of view, her world that she created. And if this leads into a greater story arc in the Marvel comics, whether it be House of M or anything like that, we know everything comes from the creation of the world she creates in her mind. Yeah.
Which I think is how we're going to develop the multiverse is through this. Like she's going to whatever she's done, I think is what's going to create the multiverse, which I think is how Doctor Strange is going to play a role. Like we were discussing last night, how even in the second episode we hear, I didn't think it was Randall Park. I never caught the voice,
I
But
caught the
after,
voice. Yeah.
but after I went back and watched it after we said it, I went, "Oh, that makes sense. It does sound," but it's so weird. Like you hear the distortion in the radio, so it was kind of one of those you have to be paying attention to catch. I think that wherever she's at, whatever they're doing with Sword and I like the fact that they even had a callback to Stryker and Hydra. I really like that.
Yeah. That was cool.
And
That was
because
really, yeah. They had a lot of little references and things in there, down to the helicopter that she finds. That's the first thing in color she finds is Iron Man's colors, the armor. Oh, my dog's freaking out. And there was a lot of cool little things in there. The Strucker. There was the first one in the first commercial. The toaster. There was something about the toaster. Was the sound of the repulsor rays. Iron Man's repulsor rays.
Yeah. Plus, it was his dad. Plus, it was probably
exactly.
Because if it's back in the 40s or 50s, it's got to be Howard Stark. If you watch the dials, they almost look like the same dials that they use when they create Cap. Now it's just probably it's probably one of those. Oh, look, this looks good on here. Let's just add this here. But I just thought
that's a good catch. No, that's a good catch. That's a definitely good catch. We'll see. We'll see what it goes on to. I think it's going to be multiverse, and I think it's going to be a way for the mutants to be introduced.
Well, and we already know Evan Peters. It's funny that people are going, "Oh, this big spoiler. This has been out for a while." That Evan Peters is going to eventually show up. Which I want to know if she's going to put him to her brother, or if they're going to kind of go back and forth or not, because they're both. Because they're both Maximoffs, you actually see a little Wanda in X-Men. Which one? I can't remember which one it is. It's Days of Future Past because you see the baby, because he's sitting with her on the floor.
Yeah,
and they make a watching Magneto bring in stuff, which could be, if he's back, that very much means we could see the First Class kids come back, which I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but nevertheless, because even in Deadpool 2, while he's walking, is it one or two? Yeah, it's two, because they actually close the doors. They close the doors, it's the First Class cast, which, I mean, we know Deadpool's in the MCU, so I know I'm reaching I'm grasping for straws here.
You're reaching. But that's all right. Well, it's the interesting thing is there. I'm just curious to see how long they're going to play out the kind of the mystery. The one thing I really liked about the episodes was in those moments where it changes and we realize we're in a different reality, is the camera angles change. So in the first episode, once the boss starts to choke, then you don't get that 2-camera sitcom filming anymore. You get the more tracking shot and that kind of thing, which was really cool. And it gave me a very, very Twin Peaks vibe, which anything Twin Peaks I'm all about. So
that's a good that's a great callback.
Yeah, I went, ooh, that's a very David Lynchian thing. A couple of especially the use of sound, I really liked. And that second episode too.
And I love the fact that whole scene, they're sitting there, they're having talk, and you could see that they're trying to fit in, but it's not really working.
Yeah, it's not happening quite.
And I love his wife. She was in that 70s show. It's the perfect character. I absolutely adore her. She's even in the second episode, she's just sitting in the audience, just cracking up. But every time the camera pans to her, I laugh.
Yeah, she's really great. I think casting wise, they cast a lot of people that fit that time frame. They fit that really, really well. I thought it was very well cast. And I love in the second episode when he went to the neighborhood watch committee, whatever it was, and it was just a bunch of guys gossiping. I just thought that scene, all those actors really committed to that scene really well, and it was fun. I mean, even the hokey, he chewed the gum and it gummed up the works. Ha ha ha!
And that's perfect. And it's animated exactly to fit that time period.
Yeah.
And I love. And I'm sorry, but Paul Bettany stole this show. Like the first two episodes, like the first one was more Wanda, but the second one, they just let Paul Bettany do him. Like if you've seen him in what's A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger and Alan Tudyk, he fits perfectly. I mean, how many guys would walk down the street butt naked
Yeah.
and just kind of go, whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think his acting chops. It's really good to be able to see him kind of branch out, and then we're also seeing, because we're seeing everything from Wanda's perspective. We're seeing, because she saw the most humanity in Vision, and we're seeing a fully human, even though he's acting like he doesn't. Oh, I don't eat food, but we're seeing him have human reactions, human emotions, and they're coming, quick.
Yeah.
And I think Paul Bettany's a great actor for that.
And it goes to the second episode after, like he sits down with the guys and he wants to be real serious, and then all of a sudden they kind of break out and, start just kind of shooting the shit, and he just blends in. And then all of a sudden, it pans to Wanda, who is in that costume. I wish we could have seen in color, but, I mean,
we might still.
I just Elizabeth Olsen she's great looking.
She really is.
And it works for the two of them, being kind of even older in age. It doesn't really matter the way it works, because she was basically created in a lab. She was dealing with, hardship from basically day one,
Yeah.
And I love the fact that
she might be in a lab now. We don't know.
Oh, I know. And I love the fact that at the end of the first episode, you see the sword logo. Like, they don't openly come out and go, sword. It's real.
Yeah.
It's real. After our discussion last night, I went and looked into it, and I really think she could be with the Skrulls right now, for all we know.
See, that's the thing about there's so many potential comic storylines that they could bring into this, whether it be House of M, Secret Invasion, a lot of different things that they could be blending in to this. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I will say something that Nikki said last night about, we still don't know more of the plot. We know just as much about the plot now that we did when we watched the trailer. So I think if we're going for getting us a little bit more information, hook us in a little more, I think it's going to have to evolve. Either, if we're going through time periods, and is there 9 episodes or 10? Is it 9 or 10? 9. So if we're going 2 for the 50s, 2 for the 60s, 2 for whatever it is, I think we have to get a little bit more than the last few seconds of the episode to do that transition. I think we have to get a little bit more.
And what I was reading is the critics got to see the first 3 episodes.
3, yeah, and we didn't get to see the third one yet.
And they said it was a very slow burn, but once it picks up. So I think that they put both of those episodes out together, not all 3 of them, for a very specific reason. Let's get everybody used, because in this episode we got to know the first one we got to know everyone. The second one we got to see more of. There's something beneath
weird nod, yeah.
Yeah, there's something beneath the surface we can't figure out quite yet, but it still kept that kind of that satire sitcom feel-esque. But there's something else. You can feel it. Just like when the woman cut herself and you see the blood is red.
The blood is red. Yeah, the blood is in color.
She had found the airplane at first. And the blood, no, it was. Yeah, she found the airplane.
Helicopter airplane thing. Yeah.
And then that night or that next day, she found the blood, and then Vision got drunk with the guys and played horse's shoes. Oh God,
horse's shoes.
And it's
that
funny.
Was a good scene.
And I feel bad for the poor heavyset girl that just kind of had to carry that header out. And she's just sitting there. And you could tell she's trying to emote as much as she can. And she's got this big ass horse's head next to her the whole time. And you can feel just the energy. And that the woman that they brought on the stage with them, and Wanda was straight up doing magic. That right there, like Caleb was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, she took that piano and turned it into cardboard, then hooked him up to the wire. And that hadn't happened yet.
No, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. We've never seen her use chaos magic or whatever that, they want to label it. It's been called so many different things in the comics. But her powers. So they could easily, if this is all just in her head and we're seeing it, they can easily, write that off as, that was just because it's in her head and she can do anything in her mind. So she'll still have the more traditional powers we saw in the movies once we're back into quote unquote reality. Or they could say this is her expanding and opening up an actual creation. It's really going to determine on how they introduce those kids.
Yeah,
because she was pregnant at the end of the second episode. So are we going to see the kids at the end of the third episode? Or are we going to see the kids at the fourth episode? Are we going to see growth patterns? What are we going to see?
I kind of hope that they jump time a little bit. Maybe
I think they will. I think they will.
In episode 3, she maybe is on the verge of having the kids, and then maybe at the end of episode 3 she has them. Because one of the episodes you actually see Vision in the original green and yellow Vision costume out trick-or-treating. If you look around,
with kids,
So maybe these kids are going to have a bigger role in this show than they seem, and that's going to be her expanding the world. Because who knows? Maybe she's already built this whole world herself. She's found this area because we see the tent with what we assume is Randall Park and Kat Dennings inside. So maybe she's taken this area, maybe went underground somewhere or something along those lines, and built this world. And what we see people coming through the tunnel is them digging into and trying to get into their world.
Into the world, yeah.
Because if you watch, one of the trailers actually shows military vehicle convoys and tanks rolling up into this area.
Yeah. So that's one thing I wish I wouldn't have seen the trailers before, honestly, because now that in the trailers we see future things, I want to see that. I'm interested in that. Not that I'm not interested in the sitcom stuff, because that stuff was fun, but as I go on, everything I go on is on rewatchability. And there's only 2 of the thing about Marvel Studios properties is there's only 2 movies I won't really rewatch out of all of them. That's a pretty good number. It's a pretty good record.
That's 21 out of 23. I mean,
exactly. So there's only 2 that I won't rewatch.
And the ones that people won't rewatch, if I'm watching them for something, I'll watch them. Like if I'm watching the Thor trilogy, I'll watch them.
Yeah.
I'm watching. Some people say Age of Ultron. I personally really like Age of Ultron.
I do too. I like Age of Ultron. Great.
I like most of them. I mean, Iron Man 3, I like Iron Man 2 as well. I kind of like Iron Man.
Iron Man 2 is one of my favorite ones. My 2 that I won't rewatch are probably not everybody's. You just mentioned Iron Man 3. I'm not interested in watching that one again. I don't like that one that much. And I really don't like Black Panther. I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, but I think it's poorly directed and the CGI is crap.
And that's understandable. I think they try to do a lot in a very short.
They try to do too much. I love those characters.
I have to wonder if, in looking back at what we know with Chadwick Boseman and his cancer, maybe they wanted to get all of this out.
Before
we don't have time to get to here with 2 or 3 movies. We've got to
we got to get this out.
We got to get T'Challa's story. We got to do it here. That was the thought I have.
That's a good theory. That's a good idea. I mean, good theory about that, because I think Black Panther's. I love Siri. I love Black Panther. I do love T'Challa a lot. He's one of my favorite in comics. One of my favorite characters.
Absolutely.
And I love his design in the movies, but the CGI was just too much in the Black Panther movie. I think it was done way better. Yeah, I think it was done way better in Civil War and the 2 Infinity and Endgame. His story was better told that way.
Yeah, and the problem I see with Black Panther is that it's very CGI heavy. If you look, yes, it's a superhero movie. I'll give you everybody that, but it's really, really CGI heavy. As opposed to other, yes, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is not in an entire suit of armor.
True.
But it's more realistic to worldwide, and I can understand that. And with this show, what I like about it is the fact that there really hasn't been a whole lot. If they have CGI, it's wonky.
We can't tell. Yeah. We can't really see, or if it's really so bad, like the animated inside of Vision. It's
Yeah.
really hokey and silly, and
Or like
but
when
it
she was
fits.
making dinner, like going back to the dinner
Yeah,
scene, when the guy
yeah,
chokes, like you can actually, if you look at it, it's really cartoony and wonky, but it
hmm
works.
yeah,
So I'm curious to see where they go. Like when I
yeah.
finished it, I was like, I'm really into this. I don't know where they're going with it. I like that. Let's keep going. After rewatch, I'm like, well, what are we gonna do next? Like, what's next? Because
Yeah. I
we
think
know we I
depending,
think they
yeah,
put too much out. I hate to say it, but I think they put too much out in the trailers. Like they're going, it's
yes,
going to look like this, it's going to be like this. And who knows, next week when we have this conversation, we may go, well, they've just fixed all of that.
yeah. I think that because yeah, again, the reason I didn't want to see shouldn't have saw the trailers is because the expectations are such, and we have to take into account that even though we could always say we're not going to compare Mandalorian to this, but we are. That's just what we're going to do.
Because that's
Disney,
just what happens.
because that's what happens. Because just like we compared every DC property movie to the Marvel Studios movies, and they're superior. They're just superior. And Mandalorian set such a high bar with quality production, compelling stories, making us love the characters, making us care. So I think, hopefully with WandaVision, they know what's going on, and once we get to that third episode, we go, oh, okay, wow. But I think going back, I won't rewatch these first two episodes ever again. I mean, I just don't feel the need.
Yeah, and maybe once all 9 episodes come out, I mean, it's going to be a 4.5 hour. They're averaging 30 minutes an episode. They said, so that's 4.5 hours. Like Nikki last night was going, well, it was just this. I'm like, yeah, but you got to think about it. They just added, okay, so this is how the story's going to go. These are the people in the first episode. This shows Wanda is controlling everything because she just goes, Vision, help him. Vision, help him.
Yeah.
And you could feel the tension, just things changing. You could feel
it. The good shift. I mean, the filmmaking is quality. That's the thing about it is it's very quality storytelling and directing, but it's just, and it's so strange because pacing wise, because you can take a quality director can take something that's very menial or nothing and make it compelling. And I'll go to Twin Peaks: The Return again because that's my the greatest show in the last however long. But there's a scene that I think it's about 7 to 12 minutes of sweeping the floor, of this guy in this place sweeping the floor. And because we've been involved in this world, in this story, we know what's maybe supposed to happen or not supposed to happen, but we're so compelled with every detail that, at least I'm watching for every little detail. And then when the music comes and it's, oh, you realize you just watched sweeping the floor for 12 minutes and there wasn't any reason for it, but it's still compelling. It's still interesting.
And I've there's movies where people are just sitting around having a conversation and the camera just sweeps back and forth. It could be sitting here with me and then one looking at you and we're having this conversation and it's a 10-minute conversation about what have you. And you go, wow, that was, really
so compelling. Interesting. Yeah.
It's definitely, they've got people's attention. And I can understand why people are like, well, this was just garbage. Because they expected it, to hit the ground running. And it's
exactly.
Well, we've got, I think if they hadn't gone to 9 episodes, they had stuck with the 6.
It would be different. We might have got one episode like this instead of 2.
Yeah.
I think they would have come back.
But then Marvel and Disney Plus went, this seems to work. Okay, let's add this here, and this here.
Yeah.
Because eventually we know Doctor Strange is going to show up. Because this is going to into the Doctor Strange. This is supposed to lead into Spider-Man 3. This is the gateway.
This will be interesting to see what kind of cameos they're going to throw in because of, and also largely maybe the setting up the movies, but also for setting up and kind of matching what, again, hate to compare it, but back to Mandalorian. Mandalorian gave us some juice. I mean, they gave the world ridiculousness So there's got to be in the minds of people making the show going, okay, what can we do now, Marvel wise, to up that game, to hit that mark too, because that's the expectation.
Yeah, I just pulled up the cast list, and there's something really interesting here. They actually have James Spader as Ultron's voice as on the cast list, the official. So I have to wonder, like Evan Peters, we know he's going to come back as Quicksilver. Yeah, Dennings will be Darcy. You know, we've got Monica Rambeau. Yeah, Randall Park.
Yep.
I want to know what's going to lead into James Spader. I have to wonder if this is going to go back in time.
It might, or it could also be a silly commercial with Ultron's voice. You know, it could be that. It could be just that simple. You never know.
And it's funny, we were supposed to discuss the episode, and we've been going a half hour already. We've discussed the episodes, and it's more of a what if,
What if, yeah. Well, and that leads into another thing.
And that's what I like about it, right? It could go into a lot of stories. But with Mandalorian, what I like the difference between them is Mandalorian was the child, Mando protecting the child. First episode was, I'm going to get this little shit, and I'm going to take him, and we're done. Yeah. But he gets there, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. Like, we knew that the story was going to circle these two.
Yeah.
But, you see Mando change. With this one, it's, let's let these characters air out a little bit. We don't have to rush quite as into it because these people are already attached to these characters. Mm-hmm. Let's just take it slow. Let the story tell itself. And that's what I'm curious about, to see if it's going to be, we're going to follow these characters the whole time, or are we going to maybe split off? Maybe one of the episodes is, in her little bubble, but it's Randall Park and Kat Dennings trying to get in, or Doctor Strange trying to get in, and just like with She-Hulk, when we get to that, Warrior Round Table, we'll go through WandaVision, then we'll go to Falcon and Winter Soldier next, and we're just going to keep this shit running because, well,
heck yeah. Hey, they make them, we'll watch them. That's the thing about it, is as much as I probably won't watch these 2 episodes again, it still has me, I want to see what happens next. And that's the mark of good. Even the little moment, my favorite moment of the whole thing, the 2 episodes that we saw, was at the end of the 2nd episode, when that beekeeper guy comes out of the ground, and she has, and again, acting chops on this lady. She just goes, no. And then there was a specific change in beats, specific change in everything. And then it went to the rewind thing, which I thought was absolutely amazing and compelling, very Lynchian, which I thought was cool. Mm-hmm. But again, the marks of good filmmakers, the people that are making this are good storytellers, good filmmakers. So they've got me hooked in that, and I want to see what happens next for sure.
Yeah. And it's almost like she knew who it was. Like she went, no, you're not supposed to be here. Goodbye. Let's back it up and change it.
Yeah.
And then I love the fact that they both just, like, at the end of it, just sit on the couch.
Yep. That's it.
Let's watch a little TV.
Yeah, and there we go.
And it's perfect, And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm pregnant now. Let's move on a little.
Yeah, let's move on to another thing.
And I like how the color kept bleeding in a little bit throughout the episode. Like, you knew something was changing. And then all of a sudden, it's looking around, just like with the Munsters, or not the Munsters, the Addams Family. When Addams Family went from black and white to color, it very slowly happened, but then all
gradually did it. Yeah.
Throughout that season where it went from black and white to color, it very quickly changed in the end of the season, and then the next season it's full color.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like, how they finished it. And it's just kind of like, I love that line, we're an odd couple, aren't we? And he just sits down like there was never any question about that.
Yeah, there's never any doubt, never any question.
So, all right. Cool. So to wrap up here, brother.
Yep.
What did you, as an opening 2 episodes, and not knowing what's going to happen from the trailer, from what we've seen, are you excited to see where it goes, or are you more curious?
That's a good question. I think I'm more curious. I am
too. I'm excited because we get to stay in this world. It's different. It's unique.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see who does what next.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more curious to see because there's so much. Because there's so much that's going to happen. You know, this show is going to basically set up the groundwork for the MCU moving forward. Like they may say that officially it's Black Widow. No, it's this.
It's this. Yeah, it's this.
Because Black Widow, yes, maybe the start of Phase 4, but that's already happened.
Yeah.
This is just like they talked about in Endgame. This is the crack in reality that we're following.
Yep.
So, all right, brother. Well,
cool.
This was the Warrior Roundtable. We will be back next week.
Shoots.
Dr. Space, where can people find you, good sir?
Y'all can find me on pretty much anything Matt's doing. I'm down to be on, whether it be trivias, talking shows, the After Dark show, anything out there, you can find me there. And that's about it. I'll be around here because I like being here and I like hanging out with Matt. I like hanging out with all our people and sharing all this with the people out there watching.
And for myself and the Little Warrior, everybody stay clanned up and good night.